I'm Olivia Reynolds, 28, and until 6 months ago, I thought being an event planner in Boston meant I'd automatically be included in my sister Amy's wedding. We grew up sharing everything, from clothes to secrets. But apparently not. Her special day. When Mom said they were keeping it small, I believed her, until Instagram revealed 80-plus guests, including second cousins we'd met once. That betrayal cut deeper than any knife, leaving me with two choices: stay home nursing my wounds or find my own adventure. Iceland's majestic landscapes were calling, and I answered, never expecting my phone would soon be ringing with panicked wedding day disasters only I could solve. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stay with me to discover how I learned that sometimes being excluded leads to the most extraordinary journey of self-discovery. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, Amy and I were inseparable despite our 3-year age difference. I still remember braiding her hair before school, defending her against neighborhood bullies, and staying up late whispering about our dreams, under blanket forts. Our matching Christmas pajamas and coordinated Halloween costumes spanned 12 consecutive years, documented in family albums that Mom proudly displayed in our living room. I was always the protective older sister, the one who taught Amy to ride a bike, helped her with science projects, and later gave her advice about boys and makeup. When she struggled with math, I spent hours breaking down equations until concepts clicked for her. I even skipped my junior prom to attend her dance recital when our parents had a scheduling conflict. My priority was always Amy's happiness, something our parents silently reinforced with their not-so-subtle favoritism. Dad would bring Amy surprise gifts, just because, while mine typically arrived only on birthdays or Christmas. Mom frequently praised Amy's artistic talents while my academic achievements received brief acknowledgments. I never resented this dynamic, accepting it as part of being the responsible firstborn who didn't need constant validation. After college, I threw myself into building my career, working 60-hour weeks to establish my reputation in event planning. The sleepless nights and networking hustle paid off when I landed my first celebrity client 3 years ago, planning a wedding that got featured in major magazines. That success snowballed into a roster of high-profile clients seeking my meticulous attention to detail and crisis management skills. Despite my increasingly hectic schedule, I always made time for family gatherings and especially for Amy, flying home 4 times yearly for holidays and significant occasions. Our relationship began shifting when Amy started dating Bradley Harrington 2 years ago. Bradley came from old money, his family owning several investment properties throughout New England and maintaining strict social expectations. The first time I met him at a family dinner, he spent 20 minutes explaining why my career was trendy but unsustainable, and suggested I consider something more appropriate for long-term stability. Amy, once my fiercest defender, laughed, along with his condescending jokes. With each month of their relationship, Amy adopted more of Bradley's attitudes and his family's social protocols. She began criticizing my apartment as too bohemian, my casual dating life as lacking direction, and my fashion choices as trying too hard to be unique. Despite these growing tensions, I still treasured our sisterhood, believing our bond transcended these external influences. When Amy called announcing her engagement, I immediately cleared my schedule and flew home for an impromptu celebration, bringing champagne and handmade congratulatory signs. I spent that weekend genuinely happy for her, ignoring the way Bradley's mother examined my outfit with thinly veiled disapproval and how his sisters whispered when I mentioned my latest celebrity client. In my heart, I was already planning the perfect bachelorette weekend and reviewing bridesmaid dress options, assuming my maid of honor role was a given considering our history. The following month, during a Sunday family dinner, Amy nervously announced she had asked our cousin Megan to be her maid of honor, explaining that my unpredictable work schedule would make planning difficult. I maintained a supportive smile while something cracked inside me, but I immediately offered to help with planning instead, knowing my professional expertise could create the wedding of her dreams. Amy seemed relieved by my understanding response, and I genuinely pushed aside my hurt feelings, determined to support her happiness above my disappointment. That night, I called my best friend Zoe and cried for hours, but by morning, I had convinced myself that being involved in any capacity was enough. Little did I know this was just the first step in a systematic exclusion that would ultimately lead me to stand alone on an Icelandic cliff, while my sister's carefully constructed wedding day crumbled from across the ocean. 6 months before the wedding date, our parents hosted a Sunday brunch where excited chatter about venue options and color schemes dominated the conversation. I arrived bearing wedding magazines and a portfolio of vendor contacts willing to offer family discounts through my professional connections. Mom greeted me with her usual quick hug before turning her full attention back to Amy and Bradley, who were showing everyone photos of a historic mansion they were considering for the ceremony. As I settled into an empty chair with my coffee, Mom casually mentioned they were planning a small, intimate ceremony with just family and close friends. I nodded understandingly, even offering suggestions for making limited guest lists feel special through personalized touches. "Actually, we've already hired Vanessa Mitchell to coordinate everything," Amy announced, referencing a local planner whose work I knew to be overpriced and unoriginal. Bradley's parents recommended her specifically. When I gently suggested some innovative ideas that wouldn't interfere with their coordinator's plans, Bradley's mother Charlotte interjected, "We prefer traditional approaches for family events, nothing too experimental." The dismissal was subtle but clear, leaving me to silently sip my coffee while everyone continued discussing details without seeking my input. In the weeks that followed, I watched as bridesmaids were announced on social media, dresses were selected, and engagement photo sessions were shared online. My calls to Amy became increasingly brief, with her citing wedding stress and busy schedules before rushing off the phone. March turned to April, then May, with no formal invitation arriving, while other family members began mentioning travel arrangements. The gnawing anxiety finally prompted me to text Amy directly. "Hey sis, just wondering if I should book flights for the big day? Haven't received any details yet." Her response came hours later. "Still finalizing some things. Venue has limited capacity and we're struggling with budget constraints. We'll let you know soon." The vague answer fed my growing unease, especially knowing Bradley's family wealth made budget concerns unlikely. A week later, during a rare phone conversation with Mom, I directly asked about my invitation. Her hesitation spoke volumes before. She finally said, "Sweetheart, they're keeping it very small. Amy thinks having you there might complicate things given your differences with Bradley's family. Maybe it's better this way, less pressure for everyone." The explanation landed like a physical blow, but I swallowed my hurt and pretended to understand, not wanting to create additional family tension. "Of course I get it. No problem at all," I lied, throat tight with unshed tears. I might have actually believed the small wedding excuse if fate hadn't intervened 3 days later. While scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break, I stumbled across photos from Amy's extravagant bridal shower posted by our cousin Megan. The elaborate event featured custom floral arrangements, personalized gift bags, and at least 30 guests, including several distant relatives I barely recognized. Confused, I clicked through to other tagged photos, discovering posts about hotel blocks reserved for wedding guests and excited comments about the big day from people I'd never met. Further investigation revealed a wedding website with detailed information about the 3-day celebration, including a welcome dinner, ceremony, reception, and farewell brunch. The guest count listed on their registry information: 80+ attendees. My hands shook as I scrolled through names of second cousins, Bradley's family's business associates, and even my parents' neighbors who had moved in after I left for college. The evidence was undeniable. This wasn't about keeping things small or intimate. I was being deliberately excluded while everyone pretended otherwise. That evening, voice trembling, I confronted my mother via phone, demanding the reason for my exclusion. After painful silence, She finally admitted the truth. Bradley's family doesn't approve of your lifestyle choices, darling. They're very traditional and feel your career focus, urban living, and dating habits wouldn't align with the atmosphere they want to create. Amy didn't want to hurt your feelings, but she's trying to make a good impression on her new family. The words echoed in my apartment long after I'd hung up, each syllable confirming my deepest insecurity, that my own family had deemed me unworthy of inclusion on one of their most important days, offering me up as a sacrificial lamb to appease my sister's future in-laws and their outdated values. The weeks following this revelation became a blur of sleepless nights and tearful mornings. My normally meticulous work suffered as I found myself staring blankly at seating charts for other people's celebrations, while my own family had literally unseated me from theirs. Friends noticed my withdrawal, with Zoe finally confronting me after I canceled plans for the third consecutive weekend. "You need to stand up for yourself, Liv," she insisted during an intervention dinner at my apartment. "They're gaslighting you about this whole small wedding nonsense and making you feel crazy for being hurt." Marcus, my colleague and close friend, agreed more bluntly. "Your sister is being a coward. If she's ashamed of you because some rich boyfriend's family disapproves, that's her moral failure, not yours." Their outrage validated my pain, but couldn't erase the growing emptiness that followed me through each day. With their encouragement, I attempted one final conversation with Amy, calling on a Tuesday evening when I knew she'd be alone while Bradley attended his weekly squash game. The conversation started civilly enough, with casual questions about wedding preparations, until I finally gathered the courage to address the elephant in the room. "Amy, I know I'm not invited to your wedding, and I know it's not about venue, size, or budget. Can we please just be honest with each other about why?" My sister's immediate defensive reaction told me everything. "Not everything is about you, Olivia. This is my day, and I need it to go perfectly without any drama or complications. Why can't you just understand that for once?" Her words cut deeper than any previous exclusion. "What drama would I cause exactly?" "By existing as myself," I countered, tears threatening. "You know how you are," Amy snapped. "Your whole independent, career-focused persona. The way you challenge everything traditional. Bradley's family is important to me, and they have certain expectations about family values." The argument escalated, until Amy finally blurted, "Maybe if you'd settled down instead of jumping between relationships and prioritizing your career above everything, you'd understand what family really means." I hung up, hands shaking, realizing my sister had fundamentally misunderstood everything about me. My career success and independent choices weren't rejections of family values, but different expressions of the same work ethic our parents had instilled in us. A subsequent attempt to discuss the situation with my mother proved equally fruitless. "Darling, sometimes we need to make sacrifices for family harmony," she suggested, as if my dignity were a reasonable price for Amy's social climbing. "Could you just understand and not make a scene? This wedding is stressful enough without adding complications." My father's response was perhaps the most painful. Complete silence. During a brief visit home when I tried to discuss my feelings, he simply stared at his newspaper, mumbling about women's business, and not getting involved. His passivity feeling like the deepest betrayal from the man who once promised to always protect both his daughters equally. Even casual family gatherings became minefields of subtle jabs, like when Bradley's sister Rebecca commented at a pre-wedding family dinner I'd been reluctantly invited to. It must be so liberating to focus exclusively on career without worrying about building a real family life. Or Bradley's father asking pointedly, "Do you think you'll ever settle into a more conventional lifestyle, or is this urban professional phase something long-term?" Each interaction reinforced that I was somehow defective in their eyes, too independent, too career-focused, too myself. My therapist, Dr. Marshall, noted during our weekly session how my posture had changed, shoulders curving inward protectively. "Family rejection touches our deepest insecurities," she observed as I described feeling increasingly hollow. "But what if instead of dwelling in that rejection, you created new memories during that weekend? Something meaningful just for you. Her suggestion initially seemed impossible. How could I possibly enjoy anything while imagining my sister walking down the aisle without me? But that night, unable to sleep, I found myself Googling places to travel alone at 3 in the morning. The algorithm served me images of Iceland's otherworldly landscapes, massive waterfalls, black sand beaches, and the possibility of northern lights even in early summer. Something about those empty, beautiful spaces called to my wounded spirit. Go somewhere that makes family drama seem small, Dr. Marshall had suggested. What could make human problems feel more insignificant than standing before nature's raw power? The idea took root, growing stronger each day as I researched flights, accommodations, and tours. I told no one about my plans, quietly requesting time off work and arranging for a colleague to cover my ongoing projects. While my family assumed I would be home alone, nursing my wounds on the wedding weekend, I was meticulously planning my escape to another world, one where being excluded from a wedding would seem as insignificant as a single grain of black volcanic sand. 3 days before my scheduled departure, my phone lit up with an unexpected call from Mom. "Olivia, thank goodness you answered," she began without greeting, her voice tight with stress. "There's been a situation with the wedding. Vanessa, their coordinator, quit yesterday after some disagreement with Bradley's mother." A heavy pause followed before she continued. "Amy is distraught. They're wondering if you might be willing to help out, just with some logistics and vendor management. You wouldn't need to attend the ceremony itself, of course." The request landed like a slap. Good enough to work behind the scenes, but not to witness my own sister's vows. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," I replied, surprising myself with my steady voice. "I've made other plans for that weekend. I'm going to Iceland." The shocked silence on the other end was almost worth the months of hurt. "Iceland? But Olivia, this is your sister's wedding. Surely you can postpone a vacation." My mother's disbelief quickly transformed into guilt tactics about family obligations and how Amy was extending an olive branch by including me in this way. An olive branch would be an actual invitation, Mom, not a last-minute request for free professional services, while still excluding me from the celebration. After 20 minutes of emotional manipulation attempts, I ended the call with newfound determination, finishing my packing with a lightness I hadn't felt in months. The liberation of boarding my flight 2 days later was indescribable, each mile separating me from Boston feeling like shackles falling away. Landing in Keflavik under a sky of impossible blue, I collected my rental car and began the drive toward my guest house in Reykjavik, windows down to breathe in air so crisp it almost hurt my lungs. The landscape unfolded around me like another planet. Vast fields of moss-covered lava rock, stretching toward distant mountains, occasional sheep dotting the hillsides like tiny cloud puffs. My small but charming guest house welcomed me with Scandinavian simplicity, the owner Christian offering homemade bread and recommendations for local experiences, away from tourist crowds. That first evening, still adjusting to the disorienting midnight sun, I joined a group dinner where travelers shared their stories over Arctic char and roasted vegetables. Among them was Elisa, a 34-year-old local guide with intricate tattoos circling both wrists and a laugh that seemed to come from somewhere ancient. "You're traveling alone?" she asked, pouring me more of the local Brennivine spirit. When I nodded, she continued, "Good. Iceland reveals herself differently to those who come without companions." Learning I had 5 days in her country, Elisa offered to show me places most Americans never see, an invitation I gratefully accepted. The following morning, she arrived in a rugged jeep, tossing my suitcase in the back with instructions to bring only essentials for our first adventure. "Today we visit Thorsmörk, the Valley of Thor," she announced as we left the city behind, crossing rivers and navigating rocky paths that barely qualified as roads. During the drive, Elisa shared her own story of family complication, her decision to become a guide instead of joining her father's fishing business had created a rift that took years to heal. Sometimes the hardest thing is staying true to yourself when those who should support you most try to reshape you, she observed, words that resonated through my chest like the bass drum I could feel but not hear. Thorsmork revealed itself as a lush valley nestled between three glaciers, its vibrant green shocking against black volcanic soil and snow-capped mountains. Hiking through this landscape felt like walking through the pages of ancient mythology, each step carrying me further from the pettiness of my family's rejection. At one point, standing breathless at the edge of a canyon, Elisa pointed to a massive waterfall in the distance. Icelanders believe water carries away what no longer serves us, she said. What would you like that water to take from you today? Without hesitation, I answered, the need for approval from people who cannot see. Me, clearly. She nodded approvingly before leading me closer to the thundering water, where the constant mist created perfect rainbows in the sunlight. That evening, we joined 3 other travelers at a remote cabin where Elisa prepared traditional Icelandic lamb soup while northern winds rattled the windows. Sophie from Canada, Miguel from Spain, and Jens from Germany shared their own stories of family expectations and the freedom found in distance. Miguel especially understood my situation, having been excluded from his brother's wedding after coming out 2 years earlier. Family thinks they reject parts of us they don't understand, he reflected, firelight dancing across his face, but they really reject parts of themselves they fear. Under a sky that never fully darkened, our conversation continued until dawn, strangers becoming confidants through shared vulnerability and the peculiar intimacy travel creates. My 3rd day in Iceland brought the most transformative experience yet. A hike across Solheimajökull Glacier with Elisa leading the way, crampons strapped to our boots and ice axes in hand. The ancient ice groaned and shifted beneath us, brilliant blue crevasses revealing centuries of compressed time. Ice remembers everything, Elisa explained, pointing to sediment layers. It holds the past, but keeps moving forward, always changing shape. Standing small against that massive flowing ice river, my family drama suddenly seemed microscopic, a momentary blip in the vast timeline of existence. That night, bundled in thermal layers despite the summer season, we drove to a remote location, away from all light pollution. If we're lucky, Elisa promised, the auroras might dance for us even in June. Fortune smiled as faint green wisps gradually strengthened into undulating curtains of light across the northern sky. Tears froze on my cheeks as the lights pulsed. Above us, their ghostly dance both humbling and healing. Under that cosmic display, surrounded by new friends who accepted me without conditions, I felt something long constricted in my chest finally release. The universe was too vast, too wondrous to remain small beneath human rejection. Tomorrow is your sister's wedding, Elisa noted softly as we watched the lights. How do you feel about that now? I considered the question seriously before answering, like I'm exactly where I need to be. I woke on Saturday to pale sunlight filtering through handmade curtains in the small cottage Elisa had arranged for my 4th night, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before remembering. Today was Amy's wedding day. 7 hours ahead of Boston time meant the wedding party would still be sleeping while I sipped coffee by a panoramic window overlooking Lake Mývatn's volcanic landscapes. The strange peace I'd found over the past days remained intact until my phone began vibrating aggressively against the wooden nightstand, multiple notifications lighting up the screen simultaneously. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, and a flurry of increasingly panicked texts from Amy herself. Curiosity overcoming my better judgment, I opened the most recent message. Liv, please call me. Total disaster here. Venue flooded overnight. From broken pipe. Everything ruined. Need your help desperately. More messages revealed the cascading catastrophe. The exclusive historic mansion they'd booked had experienced a major plumbing failure at 3 a.m., with water damage throughout. The main reception hall, Their coordinator Vanessa, who'd already been replaced once, was unreachable, having apparently turned off her phone after a final argument with Bradley's mother yesterday. The catering company, upon learning of the venue change, was demanding additional fees for last-minute relocating that exceeded the wedding budget. To compound matters, the officiant had called with strep throat, barely able to speak. The perfect wedding Amy had excluded me from was disintegrating hourly. And now, suddenly I was worth contacting. My finger hovered over the delete button, 13 hours of flight time providing a convenient excuse to ignore these messages until everything was long over. A vindictive voice inside whispered how satisfying it would be to let them handle the crisis they'd created by pushing away the one person whose entire career centered around solving such problems. That temptation lasted approximately 30 seconds before another text arrived. This one, a video message from Amy, her eyes red-rimmed and makeup streaked from crying. "Olivia, I know I don't deserve your help after everything. You were right. Bradley's family pressured me to keep the wedding appropriate, and I was too weak to stand up for you. I'm so sorry. Please, if you can find it in your heart to advise us remotely, I'd be eternally grateful." The genuine distress in her voice triggered my long-established big sister instincts, despite my rational mind arguing against involvement. I stepped outside the cottage onto a small deck, breathing in the sulfur-tinged air while contemplating my response. Elisa's words from yesterday echoed, "How we respond to those who hurt us reveals more about our character than their treatment. Reveals about our worth." With resignation mixed with strange determination, I texted back, "Setting up video call in 20 minutes. Have someone give me full situation report." I quickly showered and dressed, setting up my laptop on the cottage deck with Iceland's otherworldly landscape as my backdrop. When the video connected, chaos greeted me. Amy in half-finished makeup, Mom pacing frantically, and Bradley arguing with someone off-screen about contract terms. "Everyone stop," I commanded, using my professional event crisis voice. One person speaks at a time. "Amy, give me the exact situation." As my sister outlined the compounding disasters, I opened my professional contact list and began working while listening, sending rapid-fire messages to colleagues in Boston who owed me favors. First, the venue. "Call Westbrook Gardens immediately. The owner, Janet, is a client of mine. Tell her you're my sister and need emergency relocation for today. She had a cancellation yesterday." While Amy made that call, I continued problem-solving. With surgical precision. For catering, contact Maxwell's Premier. Ask for Tony directly. Mention my name and offer 15% above normal rate for immediate service. They can mobilize a team within hours. The efficient problem required more creativity. "Bradley, your uncle is a judge, correct? He has legal authority to perform the ceremony. Have your father call him immediately." As I dispatched solutions from 3,500 miles away, sipping Icelandic tea while a distant geothermal vent released steam behind me, I noticed Bradley's parents hovering at the edge of the video frame, their expressions shifting from disdain to reluctant appreciation as I efficiently untangled their catastrophe. Charlotte Harrington herself finally addressed me directly. "I must say, Olivia, you're handling this with remarkable competence." The backhanded compliment almost made me laugh. "This is literally my profession, Mrs. Harrington, the one you considered inappropriate for someone associated with your family." The slight flinch in her perfectly Botoxed forehead provided quiet satisfaction before I returned to the logistics at hand. For 3 hours, I directed the emergency restructuring of Amy's wedding, making calls, negotiating with vendors, and creating a revised timeline that would salvage the essential elements, while necessarily simplifying others. Through my laptop screen, I watched as initial panic transformed into cautious optimism, my professional network rising to the occasion with remarkable efficiency. When Janet from Westbrook Gardens sent photos of her staff already setting up for the ceremony, Amy burst into fresh tears, these of relief rather than despair. As vendors confirmed and solutions materialized, I noticed Bradley watching me with newly appraising eyes. "Your sister is extraordinary," he commented to Amy, loud enough for me to hear. I had no idea her connections were so substantial. The realization that my exclusion had been based on completely misjudging my professional stature added yet another layer of irony to the situation. By mid-afternoon Icelandic time, with the wedding now just hours away in Boston, the crisis had largely been averted. The ceremony would proceed at the arguably more picturesque Westbrook Gardens. Catering was confirmed with an adjusted menu. Bradley's uncle had agreed to officiate, and emergency florals were being repurposed from another event ending that morning. Before ending the call, Amy asked everyone to leave her alone with me virtually. When we were finally in private, my sister's careful facade crumbled completely. "I've been horrible to you, Liv. Letting Bradley's family dictate who should be at my wedding, excluding my own sister to impress people who will never truly care about me the way you do. Can you ever forgive me?" The question hung between us, spanning oceans and time zones, weighted with years of complicated family dynamics. "I'm working on it," I answered honestly. "But Amy, you need to understand something. I helped today because I love you, but this doesn't erase the hurt. Trust takes longer to rebuild than a wedding day." She nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I know. I just hope this can be a beginning. And Liv? Iceland looks beautiful on you. I can see something different in your eyes." As we said goodbye and I closed my laptop, I realized she was right. Something fundamental had shifted inside me during these days of self-imposed exile. The wedding would proceed without me physically present, but for the first time since this ordeal began, that fact no longer defined my worth. 2 weeks after returning from Iceland, with its landscapes still vivid in my dreams, I received a text from Mom requesting my presence at Sunday dinner to discuss recent events. The formal wording and uncharacteristic advance notice signaled the importance they attached to this gathering. Despite my instinct to decline, Dr. Marshall encouraged me to attend with newly established boundaries intact. "You've changed through this experience," she reminded me during our session. "Now is your opportunity to demonstrate that change." Arriving at my parents' Connecticut home exactly on time rather than my usual 15 minutes early, I noted 4 cars in the driveway. Mom, Dad, Amy, and Bradley were all present. The knowledge that I would face the complete assembly of those who had excluded me sent adrenaline coursing through my system, but something else accompanied it now. A steadying confidence born from standing alone on Icelandic cliffs and surviving. Mom opened the door with nervous energy, her typical quick hug replaced by an awkward hovering as if unsure of her welcome in my space. I moved past her with calm purpose, entering the living room where everyone waited in uncomfortable silence. Dad stood immediately, uncertainty etched across his features, while Amy and Bradley remained seated on the sofa, hands tightly clasped. "Olivia," my father began, using my full name as he did in serious moments. "We're very glad you came." The implied surprise that I would actually show up spoke volumes about how they viewed my legitimate hurt as mere petulance. In earlier times, I might have immediately worked to ease their discomfort, apologizing for my completely appropriate boundaries as if they were unreasonable impositions. Iceland transformed Olivia instead, took the armchair facing everyone, sat down her purse with deliberate movements, and waited. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Mom attempted her standard deflection. "Well, this has all been quite dramatic, hasn't it? But family is family, and we should put these little misunderstandings behind us." The dismissive characterization of my systematic exclusion as a little misunderstanding might once have made me question my own perceptions. Now it merely confirmed how necessary my emotional distance had become. "This wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom," I stated calmly. "You all made deliberate choices to exclude me from a significant family event, then lied about the reasons. I'd appreciate if we could at least acknowledge that reality before attempting to move forward." My directness visibly startled them, particularly my father, whose discomfort with emotional confrontation had always been pronounced. Amy spoke next, her voice small. "Olivia's right. We need to be honest about what happened." She turned toward me, shoulders squared, despite her evident anxiety. I allowed Bradley's family to influence who should be included in my wedding because I was desperate for their approval. I prioritized their judgment over our relationship, and I justified it with excuses instead of having the courage to tell you the truth. Bradley, surprisingly, added his own acknowledgement. My family has very traditional views about success and life choices, particularly for women. They saw your career focus and independent lifestyle as somehow threatening to their values. Should have challenged their perspective instead of enabling their judgment, especially after seeing how brilliantly you salvaged our wedding day from across the world. His admission appeared genuine, though I noted it still placed primary blame on his family rather than his own participation. My mother attempted to redirect with practiced skill. Well, we all make mistakes in family dynamics. Remember when Grandma excluded Aunt Sarah from that Thanksgiving after the political argument? These things happen in every family. The false equivalence and attempt to normalize serious hurt triggered the precise, measured response I'd practiced with Dr. Marshall. This wasn't a universal family experience, Mom. This was a specific choice to exclude me because my life doesn't conform to Bradley's family's narrow definition of acceptable womanhood. You chose their comfort over your daughter's inclusion, then misled me about the real reasons. That requires more than dismissing it as normal family drama. Dad, who had remained characteristically silent, suddenly straightened his posture. Olivia is right. His unexpected intervention silenced the room. We failed her completely. I failed you, Olivia. I stayed quiet when I should have insisted my daughter be included in her sister's wedding regardless of anyone's disapproval. My silence made me complicit. His voice broke slightly on the last word, emotion unprecedented from my stoic father. The acknowledgement created a small crack in my carefully maintained composure. We spent the next 2 hours in the most honest conversation our family had ever experienced, painful truths emerging about long-established patterns of favoritism, conformity expectations, and conflict avoidance that had shaped our family dynamic for decades. I maintained clear boundaries throughout, neither accepting insufficient explanations nor allowing the discussion to devolve into unproductive guilt spirals. When Bradley mentioned his sister Catherine's upcoming engagement and her interest in having me plan the wedding, she was extremely impressed by your crisis management skills. I recognized the offer as both olive branch and implicit acknowledgement of my professional value. I appreciate the consideration, I responded carefully. My schedule books months in advance, but she's welcome to contact my office formally. The subtle repositioning of our relationship, from excluded family member to sought-after professional whose time carried premium value, wasn't lost on anyone present. As the conversation drew to its natural conclusion, Amy suggested family therapy sessions, an idea so unprecedented in our conflict-avoiding household that it signaled genuine desire for change. I've found individual therapy extremely valuable, I offered, meeting her halfway without overcommitting. I would consider joining family sessions if everyone participates fully. Even more surprising was my father's immediate agreement, followed reluctantly by my mother's. Before leaving, Amy and I shared a moment alone in the kitchen, the familiar setting highlighting how much had changed between us. I found your travel photos online, she admitted. Iceland looks incredible. Those northern lights, did they really look like that in person? The simple question opened a brief connection around something unrelated to our conflict. Actually, they were more beautiful than any photo could capture. The lights seemed alive somehow, dancing across the sky. For a flickering moment, we were just sisters again, before Amy reached tentatively for my hand. I miss you, Liv. Not just now, but for the past couple years. I let myself become someone I don't recognize. I squeezed her fingers briefly before, gently withdrawing. I miss the person I thought you were too. Maybe we can both rediscover ourselves through honest conversation. Leaving my parents' house that evening, I realized that while Iceland had given me perspective on my family's treatment, it had offered something even more valuable: a clear vision of who I could be when freed from the constraint of seeking approval from those unwilling to truly see me. 6 months have passed since that fateful wedding weekend, months filled with gradual rebuilding and recalibration of expectations. The holiday season approaches, bringing its inevitable family gatherings and potential tensions, but I face them with newfound equanimity. Perhaps the most unexpected development came just last week when Elisa arrived at Boston Logan Airport, her first visit to America, staying in my guest room for 2 weeks before we embark on our return journey to Iceland during winter solstice. "I want to see those northern lights again, but this time at their winter peak," I told her during our planning calls. "And I want to stand on that same glacier, feeling small against something ancient and enduring." Our family therapy sessions continue monthly, each one uncovering layers of unspoken expectations and healing old wounds incrementally. Progress comes unevenly. 2 steps forward during an honest breakthrough, 1 step back when old patterns resurface. My mother still occasionally makes comments about my unusual lifestyle choices, but now catches herself mid-sentence, making visible efforts to understand rather than judge. My father, surprisingly, has become my most consistent ally, calling weekly just to check in, his newfound emotional availability a welcome evolution in our relationship. He recently confessed that watching me handle the wedding crisis from Iceland with such professional command made him see me as a fully actualized adult for the first time. "I've always been proud of you, Olivia," he admitted during a rare one-on-one lunch. "But I never properly expressed it because I didn't fully understand your world. I do now." The professional fallout from the wedding fiasco brought unexpected opportunities. Bradley's sister Catherine did indeed hire me for her upcoming wedding, her substantial budget and high-profile guest list opening doors to an even more exclusive clientele. More significantly, through Catherine's connections, I landed Miranda Falcone, the tech industry billionaire, as a client for her foundation's annual gala. The event's success led to a profile in Business Insider, highlighting my crisis management expertise and unparalleled vendor relationships. Amy and I have established a fragile new connection, different from our childhood closeness but potentially more honest. During a recent afternoon shopping together, our first such outing in years, she confessed that her marriage to Bradley requires more compromise than she anticipated. "Sometimes I look at your freedom and wonder what I've given up," she admitted as we shared coffee afterward. Rather than offering platitudes, I acknowledged the complexity of her feelings. Every choice closes certain doors while opening others. The question is whether you're choosing based on your authentic desires or others' expectations. We're learning to have these more substantial conversations, replacing the surface chatter that previously masked our growing differences. The friendship I formed with Elisa evolved through regular video calls and shared book recommendations. Her perspective as someone who rebuilt a damaged family relationship offers practical wisdom during difficult moments. "Family healing isn't linear," she reminded me last month when a therapy session left me frustrated. "It spirals like our Icelandic weather, sometimes returning to familiar storms before clearing again. Perhaps the most profound change remains internal. The unshakable certainty that my worth exists independently from family approval or inclusion." I recently declined a family beach weekend that conflicted with a personal retreat I'd planned, something pre-Iceland Olivia would never have dared. "I'll catch you next time," I stated simply, without elaborate justifications or apologies. The freedom in that boundary setting felt more exhilarating than any professional achievement. Last night, standing on my apartment balcony beneath Boston's light-polluted sky where stars struggle for visibility, I found myself thinking about that night under Iceland's dancing auroras. The universe had offered a powerful metaphor. Sometimes, we must remove ourselves from familiar but dim surroundings to witness true brilliance. Being excluded from my sister's wedding initially felt like the ultimate rejection, but it ultimately propelled me toward the most significant self-acceptance of my life. The painful exclusion created space for extraordinary inclusion in experiences. and relationships that truly honored my authentic self. As I look toward future family gatherings, I carry this truth. We cannot control others' capacity to value our presence, but we can absolutely refuse to diminish ourselves to earn a seat at tables that should welcome us without condition. This journey has taught me that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and ultimately for our relationships is to walk away from spaces where we're expected to make ourselves smaller. The path back, if there is one, must be walked with equal dignity on both sides. Have you ever found yourself excluded from something important by the people who should value you most? How did you respond? Did you fight to be included or find your own path like my Iceland journey? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more authentic stories about family relationships and personal growth. Hit that like button if you've ever had to choose between meeting others' expectations and honoring your own truth. Thank you for witnessing my journey from exclusion to empowerment. May you find your own Iceland whenever life's disappointments try to diminish your light.